Hello and welcome to this IntelliCorp webcast titled SAP, IntelliCorp and HP, an integration story. My name's Chris Truman, I'm IntelliCorp CTO. So this is our world. We're running SAP, IntelliCorp's live compare and live model software, and HP ALM. The first step is to discover what's really going on in our SAP implementation from a business process perspective. To do that, we use both live compare and live model. Live compare does the technical implementation analysis, and live model provides the business process context for the results. This reverse engineered design is then exported from live model to HP as business process test requirements. The integration is such that if we later change the design, then the HP requirements may be updated in place. We don't need to create another project. This means the content is synchronized between live model and HP. Live Model supports the automatic creation of business process scenarios. They naturally fit the test design approach of HP, so this content is also integrated between the two products. Now we introduce change into our SAP environment. This might be a support pack, an enhancement pack, an upgrade, or even our own customizations. We use Live Compare's unique intelligent impact analysis to discover the most at-risk transactions that we should test. As before, we use Live Model to paint the results in a business process context, and we search our HP repository for test assets that reference the transactions to test, as well as identifying the gaps. Finally, we create the HP test lab containing the matched test assets. That's the integration scenarios in a nutshell. Now let's look at the details. First, let's use Live Model to understand our SAP implementation from a business process perspective. Live Model includes a module that we call Live Capture that enables us to get access to the live performance history data stored within our SAP systems. We can either acquire the data directly from an RFC destination that we set up in Live Model. Alternatively, we can import the statistics from a flat file. Once we have the transactions loaded, we can begin to aggregate this data in the context of a business process. And the first step is to create what we call a live capture summary, which uses the pre-built SAP reference model that ships with Live Model, combines it with our transaction data, optionally filtering it, and because Live Model provides various different ways of supporting analysis of SAP data, we're going for the standard performance history view. And lastly, we create a display specification, which is a way for us to annotate the model Now let's select it. So what you can see is that we've got all of our core business processes describing the various business areas that SAP supports with our first level of decomposition. As we head down this hierarchy of business process material, ultimately we'll end up at the SAP transactions. And in fact, what we're seeing is an indication of the transactions that we use because of these navy blue ellipses that we added. And that's based on that all used data file that I loaded. Again, Live Model is capable of reading that directly from our SAP systems. And we can navigate through the hierarchy to actual flow diagrams setting out the ordering and sequencing of those transactions. And if we want to look at the transactions directly and know which ones we're using, then we have again another decomposition view. Alternatively, you can bring up what we call the Live Capture Summary report, which shows those process areas, the transactions that we're using, and a relative indicator of how frequently those transactions are used. And the percentage here merely reflects the number of transactions that we're using compared with the number of transactions that are available at this point of the model. So it gives us a good feel for the areas of SAP functionality we're using to support the business. So an obvious question at this point is, well, what about all of my custom code? And for that we're going to use live compare to automatically identify the best business process area for those custom T-codes. Let's now use live compare to examine our custom code and work out the best fit business process area for each of the custom transactions. Live compare includes a ready-to-run SAP business process analysis workflow. You'll find it over in the templates area. It needs just two pieces of information: the system containing our custom code and access to production. Now, if you don't connect live compare directly to production, that's okay. Just like with live model, we can read the performance history data from a flat file. Once we've filled in those two yellow boxes, we can play the workflow. I'll let that run and we'll come back in just a second. Okay, the workflow's finished and it outputs a CSV file that we can examine further in Excel. So here's the file. I've added a little filter just so that we can more easily pick the process areas, because what I'm interested in is just reducing this for demo purposes to something like sales. Now if we scroll across, you can see that it's found all of these custom transactions. I should stress, for the purposes of demonstration, I took our performance history data and simply appended a Z or a Z to the front of those standard transactions that we're using to sort of artificially create some custom transactions that are in the sales area. But live compare uses information like the development class, the business application component that we assign our custom transactions in order to identify the sales area. And it's also created a set of tasks for me here inside of Excel. So now what I need to do is turn this into live model content. Okay, so we're back in live model, and what I've done is copy from the complete SAP reference model that ships with live model just the sales and distribution area. And they use a wizard that you can download from the IntelliCorp iShare website, which imports Excel formatted data into the live model product. So if you think about that Excel spreadsheet that we had from live compare, which is a bunch of custom transactions, what I've done is I just formatted it to come in under this custom sales task. Now I've not imported everything. Again, I'm just reducing things down for the purposes of the demo. But what we've done is we've used live compare, analyze all of the custom transactions that we use, fit them to the most likely business process area, and then load them automatically into the live model product. Now, because those transactions are here in the model, if I go back and look at my decomposition diagram, I'm automatically getting that live capture annotation, because live capture recognizes that I use the transaction, and so it can annotate the model to say I'm using the transaction. The next step is to use live model to generate some high-level business process test scenarios. We do that usually at the sub-process level, because this is where we have the sequencing, the ordering of the transactions. So we right-click and choose Generate All Walkthroughs. And what live compare has done is it's analyzed that flow diagram and discovered all the different pathways and constructed these high-level test plans, or business process walkthroughs as they're known in live model, for each of those. If we take a look at one of them. So we switch into the flow diagram in playback mode, and you can see in the Walkthrough Explorer the different steps that live model identified are possible for this particular process. Now in live model we have all the content that we want to push into HP. We've got our business process test requirements that reflects our current live implementation of SAP, and we've also got our high-level business process tests, which will become test plans within the HP environment. Okay, so here I am in HP in a project that I've set up. As you can see, the requirements are currently empty. I've got nothing in my test plan, and I'm going to use this project as the destination for all that content from live model. First, I do need to customize the project. I want to add some new requirement types to match the content that we have within live model. So you can see our core business process, process, sub-process, and task. I want to modify the project entity for requirements to add a special integration field, which is called the Live Model Object ID, and this is how we synchronize the content between Live Model and HP. So if later we're to change the Live Model information or Live Model content business process hierarchy, we want to update this project. We don't want to have to create a new project or start duplicating lots of content. The other thing we need to do is extend the test step with a few user-defined fields. Again, another Live Model Object ID so we can do the synchronization. But also I've added fields for transactions, roles, and applications. There's more information that we capture in Live Model, like those SAP transactions, the business process roles that are responsible for that process, and like that information separated out in the HP environment. Certainly if you're working with an existing project and you already have test assets, when we come to look at the live compare integration, it doesn't matter if the transactions are in a separate field or not. But since we're starting fresh, we're creating content from Live Model. Let's break that content out. It makes it much easier for us to find the SAP transactions that these test assets will relate to. Okay, so that's the project customized, and what we need now is to link Live Model with HP. Okay, so now we need to link Live Model with our HP project. And we do that over here in the administration hierarchy of Live Model. So what I've done is I've created an object that ties or connects with that specific project based on it's a name match, and then I've got my URL to my HP environment. Once I've done that, what I need to do is right click on the model and say Export to Quality Center, choose the project and click the Export button. Switching back to QC, we can check that the content has been synchronized. Let's first go to the Requirements module. Okay, and you can see that that reflects the hierarchy we have in Live Model. Notice that the sales order has coverage analysis. That's because those business process walkthroughs that we generated in Live Model have become test plans, which are actually linked back to this business process requirement. So we can take advantage of all of the coverage analysis that HP Quality Center provides. If we go into the test plan module and refresh, we see the same hierarchy, this time just as test folders, which if we were exporting more than one business process area like we've done here for the demo, makes it much easier to navigate and find those tests. So again, we see the same components, and now we have the actual test designs themselves, including the design steps that come from that business process walkthrough. If we scroll across, you can see that customization we made to the project entity to allow transactions to be output in a user-defined field. So what Live Model did was, because that walkthrough didn't drop down inside any one of those tasks to pick a specific transaction. Of course you can do that in Live Model. It says, okay, I'm going to at least let you know what the total set of transactions are that are available that support this particular business process area. We can also bring up some of the other columns like roles and applications. Again, in Live Model, what I did was I created a role for, just again for demo, called Order Processor, and I've tied that to those particular process areas. And obviously we've linked the application of SAP to that. So there's more information that will be exported from or synchronized from Live Model to HP. Of course, that's fully custom. You can decide if you don't want to export the roles or the applications, or you want the transactions to go somewhere else. There's actually a configuration file in Live Model that sets that up. But what I've done is show you the stock functionality as we ship the product. I think it's worth doing a quick recap on where exactly we are in this integrated story of SAP, IntelliCorp and HP. So we started out by using Live Model and Live Compare to do an automatic discovery of our business process implementation based on our live SAP environment. We reduced that down to just the sales and distribution area, and we use Live Compare to understand what custom transactions we have that are in the sales area. We loaded those into the Live Model database, and we automatically generated a whole series of business process scenarios. All of that content has then been exported. The hierarchy of business process objects has become business process test requirements in the requirements module of HP, and those business process scenarios, those walkthroughs, have become high-level test designs in HP. The test designs are linked back to the test requirements, so we can take advantage of the HP coverage analysis when we come to run the tests. Now let's look at what happens when we introduce change into our SAP environment. Using Live Compare, we can identify the most at-risk transactions that we should test in response to a change that we introduce into SAP. And that change might be a support pack, an enhancement pack, or really any kind of change that comes from SAP themselves. Of course, it can also be any changes that we create, a config change, a customization, a code change, anything. Live Compare includes pre-built analyses, just like we used for the business process analysis. I'm looking at the large change impact analysis. Again, you find it in the templates area. It needs just a few pieces of information from us, the transports that we want to analyze, the SAP system where if this is a support pack, those transports have been disassembled and are in the queue, or if it's a custom transport, most likely our development system. We also want to reference production, but as I said earlier, if we don't connect Live Compare directly to production, then we can read the data from a flat file. Once we've given it those three pieces of information, the transports, the system of the queue and production, or the flat file that contains the performance history stats, we play the workflow. The end result is an access formatted database that contains a lot of information about those change, including high-level summary, which goes some way to showing the value of using Live Compare's unique intelligent impact analysis. Rather than testing what we use, rather than testing just what's impacted, we can reduce that down to the most at-risk standard and custom transactions. But what we're interested in for this integrated story of SAP, IntelliCorp and HP are the actual transactions that we should test. And we can find those in the recommended executables to test summary. I've got a flat list here of all of the transactions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these transactions as the source in a further Live Compare analysis that will do a complete scan of my HP Quality Center repository. So I use another Live Compare analysis to scan my HP project. I've loaded just a small number of the transactions that the impact analysis identified, just for the, again, purposes of reducing this for demonstration. I'm pointing it at that same HP Quality Center project that we used with Live Model, and I make use of the Live Compare workflow model in order to perform the analysis. Now I've already run this, so we can take a look at the results. And so you can start to see the things that we saw earlier when looking at the Quality Center project that had been fed from Live Model. There are all those auto-generated business process tests and the actual SAP transactions that we fed in that have caused that particular test to be matched, along with the full path, so we know exactly where in our HP Quality Center repository if we want to do any further review before we create the test lab. But that's the next step, to actually create the test lab containing these tests. Now I use the Create Test Lab workflow. It comes with Live Compare. It's going to take the results of the discovery. So if we run just this one action, we can see the results from the last workflow. A little bit of formatting, and this gives me the opportunity to group the tests, maybe based on the kind of transaction that's being exercised. But I can construct multiple test sets. I'm not constrained to have just one test set within my test lab. And to finish off the demo, we can go into the test lab module. The tests, like we saw in the test plan, are organized based on that business process hierarchy, so that everything matches, so it's easy to walk or navigate the hierarchy and find the content. That's the test set that we had set up inside of Live Compare, and then there are the references to all of the tests that were discovered which exercise that small number of demo transactions that we discovered as a result of doing our impact analysis based on the fact that we were changing our SAP environment. So in summary, we've taken our SAP IntelliCorp products and those from HP and weaved an integrated story. We've discovered our business process implementation using live compare and live model. We've created our business process walkthroughs, and we've constructed our business process test requirements and business process test scenarios inside of HP. We've introduced change into SAP and used live compare's unique intelligent change impact analysis capabilities to identify the most at-risk transactions that we should test. Live compare scanned our HP repository to discover the test assets that are available, as well as identifying any gaps. And then we constructed a test lab based on those identified and matched test assets. Well, that's the end of this webcast. Thanks ever so much for your attention and time. If you have any follow-up questions, my email address is on screen now. Alternatively, visit our website and you can find more about our products there. And don't forget to watch more of our IntelliCorp Tube videos. Thanks again.